My name is Adam, and welcome to Adam Reviews, the first video of it. And, anyway, one of the only movies that hasn't been delayed yet because of the COVID-19 outbreak is Christopher Nolan's upcoming film Tenet, which is still set to come out July 17th, and I am extremely excited to see it. And so I thought to myself, what should I do? No new movies are coming out, so I decided to talk about every single Christopher Nolan movie in order of the year they came out, and then at the end of the video, I will say my favorite and my least favorite. And, yeah, I own all of them on Blu-ray. Look at them. Look at them. Okay, so let's get started with his first film, The Following, which came out in 1998. With his first film, The Following, his feature debut, which, for being a low-budget movie, it really shot for a really ambitious concept, and it's funny because it succeeds. I find this to be a very good movie. Some people aren't a fan of it, but I love those low-budget movies from or indie movies from the late 90s or early 2000s that really shoot for these type of concepts, like Pi. Pi's another one of them. Anyway, let's get back to this. But the plot is, well, first, the story isn't in chronological order, like Memento, which is his second film, also is not in chronological order, but this movie's a lot easier to figure out, a lot easier to watch, because, I don't know, it's shorter, even though it's out of order, you can easily piece it together, kind of like Pulp Fiction. You can watch and easily know where everything goes. That movie's not confusing. But the plot of the movie is, it's about this writer who, it's about this writer who likes to follow people and learn about their life. So kind of like a stalker. And he ends up following this one guy who is a thief. He goes into people's apartments, grabs their belongings, but he doesn't grab them to steal them. He grabs them to get an insight into their life. And our main character, I think his name is I don't know, it doesn't say. Our main character, he starts working with them, and the plot gets more complicated as it goes, but that's the basic, understanding of the movie. It's only an hour and 10 minutes, and most Christopher Nolan movies are longer, but I find the background story of this movie very interesting, because everybody that was doing this movie had jobs. That this movie is incredibly low budget. It was like a few $1,000s, and but everybody that was working at it had other jobs. So this movie took over a year to make because they could only shoot it on weekends, because you don't have work on weekends. Yeah, I enjoy it. It's shot black and white. And it's funny because it's shot black and white because most older indie movies did this to hide the fact that they were very low budget, doing it black and white. Like Clerks did that too. And another thing this movie does, and Christopher Nolan ended up doing this for the rest of his movies, is in this movie, if you notice, most of the scenes take place in day. All of the scenes. I think just about every scene takes place during the day. And almost always the characters are talking in front of a window where the sun's beaming down. And they did this because they didn't have professional lighting. Anyway, I find this movie interesting. I like this story, but it's not a perfect movie, If I was to rate it, probably like an 8.5 out of 10, so like Sorry, I have to do this. So like 8 claps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then half clap. Because again, I really enjoy this movie, but I understand that it's not a perfect movie. So now let's move on to his next film, Memento, which I'm guessing most of you have seen. This is Memento, his second film, or Christopher Nolan's second film. Came out the year 2000, so only 2 years after the following. Has a way bigger budget. Well, this isn't a big budget movie. It's like, I think like $10 million. You may think that's a lot, but for movies, it's not a lot. Anyway, it stars Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss. If you don't know who she is, she plays Trinity in The Matrix, and Joe Pantoliano, who is also in The Matrix. And before I get into this, I just want to say this movie is a 10 out of 10 for me. It's one of my favorite movies. I love it so much. I love how it plays out. It's probably my favorite use of playing out a movie in non-chronological order. This movie is just so entertaining and fun to watch and so different and unique. There was talk of a remake of this. I don't make a remake to Memento. Don't. It's really dumb. Don't make a remake of Memento. If you want to see a remake of Memento, please, I don't even care about the views. If you want to see a remake of Memento, stop watching this. Anyway, if you're into film, I'm guessing you've seen Memento. I mean, you've probably seen Memento. If you haven't, please go see it. Anyway, though, the movie's about a cop named Leonard, and his wife gets his house gets broken into, and his wife gets assaulted, and she dies from it, and he ends up getting attacked by one of the attackers, and he ends up getting short-term memory loss from the attack. So basically, something that people parody a lot with this movie, and if you're looking at the cover going like, what's going on in there, throughout the movie, he to remember stuff, he tattoos it. Sorry about that. He tattoos it all over his body and looks there when he has to remember something. Don't worry, there's no nudity. Anyway, and he takes Polaroid photos to remember people. He writes something down at the bottom, and he'll just randomly forget stuff. And the movie is, I heard that the depiction of short-term memory loss is very realistic in the movie. I don't know if that's true because I don't have short-term memory loss, but if it is, that's very interesting. Very interesting. Speaking of interesting, the background story of this is also very interesting. So, Christopher Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan, wrote a short story called Memento Mori, which is what this film is based off of. And, this is a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It changed the game for film, and 10 out of 10. Okay, let's move on to his next film, Insomnia, which is kind of a strange movie to me, but we'll talk about that in a second. Anyway, go see Memento. Let's move on to 2002, when he made Insomnia. This is Insomnia, which came out in 2002 and is directed by Christopher Nolan. And I'm just going to start off with saying this is not one of my favorite Christopher Nolan movies, but I believe it's highly underrated, and I also think it's a very good movie. But also, I don't consider it on the level of Inception. Anyway, this movie It is pretty good though. It stars Al Pacino, Robin Williams, Hilary Swank. Robin Williams gives my favorite performance in the movie, and he, I think the movie's called 1 Hour Photo. No, it's not called 1 Hour Photo. There's another movie where he had a serious performance in it too, and he was really great in it. But this is one of them. He gives my favorite performance in it, even though everybody else is really good in the movie as well. Something about this movie is that it's based on a book, and I don't know why this is such a big deal to me, but um, I'm just used to Christopher Nolan writing his own stories for his films, and um, making very original films. That this one isn't as original. I mean, I still like it a lot. I consider it different. It's different than other murder mysteries. When I talk about the plot, you'll understand why. But it doesn't feel as original as something like Memento, or The Following, or Inception, or Interstellar. And yeah. But something funny about this was Christopher Nolan's third movie. It's based on a book. Quentin Tarantino's third movie was Jackie Brown, and that is also based on a book. I don't know, I felt like saying that. Um, yeah, this is a very good movie though. I think the performances are great. So let me finally talk about the plot. So it is about a police officer, played by Al Pacino, who goes down to Alaska with his partner to, I think, yeah, they're detectives, sorry. He goes down to Alaska with his partner to solve this murder in this small Alaskan town. And the younger police officer there that they work with is played by Hilary Swank. And so when they're on when they're when they think they see the guy and they go after chasing him, they're in this foggy area, and Al Pacino ends up accidentally shooting his partner. And that is the basic plot of the movie. And then, through increasing levels of stress, he gains insomnia and can't sleep. So yeah, there's nothing I I don't really have too much to say. I think it's a pretty good movie. Like, probably like an 8 out of 10, 8 claps out of 10. But yeah, I still strongly recommend it if you're looking for a cool murder mystery to watch. This is a good one. It's very entertaining, very good. Okay, so now let's move on to 2005, when he directed Batman Begins, the start of the Dark Knight trilogy, which I'm pretty sure everybody has seen the Dark Knight trilogy. Okay, I'll talk about them in a second when we start talking about Batman Begins. Okay, let's move on to 2005. This is Batman Begins. Um, there's nothing really to say about this movie. I mean, everybody else praised the movie so much. I mean, I love this movie. It's great. It's great. Um, it's one of my favorite superhero movies. One of my favorite movies. It's one of my favorite movies, but I would give it a 9.5 because I have two tiny flaws with it. Two tiny flaws with it. And this was all improved in the second and the rest of Christopher Nolan's filmography. Is the action in the movie. A lot of the hand-to-hand scenes are shot really like shakily, like really dark. You can't really see what's going on in them. Well, that's how I feel when I'm watching it. I don't know if you guys can perfectly watch it, see everything going on, but when I watch this first Batman movie, I really can't see what's going on in the fighting. And CGI Gotham City. I'm glad they shot the Dark Knight. I think they shot the Dark Knight in like Chicago. I think they shot in Chicago. I'm glad they shot the Dark Knight in Chicago because the fake city they used for this, also I'm not a huge fan of. But let's stop criticizing the movie. Everything else is perfect about it. I love Cillian Murphy has Scarecrow in all of these movies. He's one of my favorite parts of the trilogy. I don't know. Anyway, like I said, there's not too much to say about this movie that hasn't already been said. Um, yeah. All the performances are good. It's probably my favorite Liam Neeson movie. I mean, it's not really that hard to pick your favorite Liam Neeson movie. It's easy to, it's really hard to pick my least favorite because he's usually in a lot of crappy movies. Anyway, let's move on. This is The Prestige. This movie is perfect. Just out of this league. This movie is amazing. It's so entertaining and so great. And it's so unique. I mean, my biggest issue with Insomnia was that it's not super original compared to his other movies. Well, this is like one of his most original films. And it's very underrated. Very underrated. If you have not seen The Prestige, please go watch it. You need to watch it. You need to watch this movie. It's got an awesome ending. It's great. I don't want to say too much about the plot, so I'm going to keep it vague. It's about two magicians, played by Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, and basically their rivalry over the years. That's all I'll say. And, it stars Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. They're both perfect in it. Michael Caine is in it. Great actor. Scarlett Johansson is in it. She's pretty good in it. She's got a small part, but she's still pretty good in it. And, David Bowie's in the movie. David freaking Bowie's in the movie. And, he plays Tesla. And, he's also great in the movie, and he also has a smaller part. Anyway, definitely a movie that not enough people have seen. Like, I don't know. I feel like everybody should watch this movie. It's so good. So, yeah. Please go watch The Prestige if you have not seen it. And let's move on to 2008, where Christopher Nolan famously directed his most famous movie, The Dark Knight, which, everybody's seen The Dark Knight. This is The Dark Knight, which everybody's seen The Dark Knight. I mean, I could go on and on about how perfect this movie is, but everybody knows this movie's perfect. I mean, I've never met a person that doesn't like this movie. Never met a person that doesn't like this movie. And I think there's probably only like 10 people out there in the world that don't like this movie. I'm just going to start off with saying one of my favorite performances ever is Heath Ledger has the Joker. So you can't even recognize him. Like, if I told somebody that didn't know this was Heath Ledger, like if I said to them, that guy from 10 Things I Hate About You plays this really creepy looking Joker, you'd be like, what? Because if you look at him, it looks like a total transformation. It's amazing, and whenever he's on screen, you can't look away. It's impossible. The way they handle his character is just great. It's, by the way, R.I.P. Heath Ledger. Wish he was still alive. Every other part of this movie is also perfect. The action in this movie, I said, one of my issues with Batman Begins is how they shot the action. In this, the action is shot perfectly. The opening scene of this movie is amazing. The opening scene of this movie could just stand by itself as a short film. It'd be amazing. Everything's great about the movie. I mean, like I said, there's really... Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but the chair I'm in is squeaking. I don't know if you guys can hear it. It's so annoying. Anyway, back to the movie. Yeah, there's not much else I can say about it. It's just a perfect movie. It's one of the best movies ever made. 10 out of 10. It's a masterpiece. Standing ovation movie. Standing ovation movie. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to 2010 when he directed Inception. I love Inception. I love Inception. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Dark Knight, perfect movie. Everybody knows that. Okay, like I said, let's go to 2010 now. Is Inception. Came out in 2010, and this is another movie. Pretty much most people have seen it. Before I get into the movie, I'd like to say this extremely, surprisingly long video has turned into me complimenting a whole bunch of movies that pretty much everybody's seen. And once in a while I have a tiny critique with one of the movies. But, I don't care. I don't care. I seem to lead a very bland life. Anyway, that was sad. Let's talk about Inception. So, Inception, I believe, yeah, it's just written by Christopher Nolan, and it's also directed by him, and this movie is awesome. It is amazing, and it delves into a subject that I am fascinated with, and I love when movies jump into it. It's dreams. Another director that talks about dreams a lot, more so than Christopher Nolan, and his movies are a lot more subtle about it, and they're supposed to feel like a dream. It's David Lynch. I might do a video on him. Anyway, let's go back to Inception. So Inception might be my favorite movie of his. I haven't decided yet. It's very hard because I love pretty much every movie he's made. This movie is just great. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Marion Cotillard. I can't pronounce her name, but she plays Ra's al Ghul's daughter in Dark Knight Rises. So, I mean, that's who she is. Ellen Page is in it. Wouldn't expect Ellen Page to be in a Christopher Nolan movie, but she's pretty good in it. Tom Hardy. I don't know what that was. I love Tom Hardy. Cillian Murphy, great actor. Tom Berenger. I'm guessing he's this guy over here. And Michael Caine. Yeah, there's nothing. Again, this is another movie of his that's pretty much praised by everybody, including myself. I've seen this movie so many times. This is my favorite movie of his to rewatch. I love it. I've probably seen this and The Dark Knight the most out of his movies. Yeah, really great movie, cool special effects, an amazing score. I love the score in this movie. It's amazing. I haven't brought up Hans Zimmer's scores that he puts into a lot of Christopher Nolan's movies that he's worked on, but this is a great example of a great Hans Zimmer score. Yeah. It's also a heist movie, I guess. It's technically a heist movie. There's really no point of me getting into the plot. Just like The Dark Knight, most people have seen it. If not, please go watch it. Please go watch it. It shouldn't be that hard to find. Anyway, yeah, Inception, great movie. Now, let's move on to 2012, when he directed the final installment in the Dark Knight trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. This is The Dark Knight Rises, the final installment in the Dark Knight trilogy. Now, this is kind of interesting to me because some people hate this movie. Some people love this movie, Some people are in the middle about it. I really like this movie, but I do have flaws with it. I mean, it's probably like an 8.5 out of 10 claps for me, 8.5. So I like the movie a lot. I don't hate it, but there's some flaws. There are some issues. So probably closer to an 8 out of 10, I guess. But it doesn't change the fact that this is still an amazing movie. You got Tom Hardy playing Bane. He's great in it. I mean, he's still nobody reaches Heath Ledger level, but he's still amazing in it. You got Christian Bale again. Anne Hathaway plays Catwoman. She's pretty good in it. I guess my story critiques with it is there's plot holes. You can watch other videos about that. Of course, the whole. If you've seen the movie, there's a portion of the movie where Bruce Wayne gets defeated. Those first fights in a superhero movie where the person's fighting the villain and they get overcame by the villain and they get like thrown somewhere or something and they gotta work up to the strength to beat them. That's what happens in this, except he ends up getting trapped in this society of people that are like prisoners in this hole. It's kind of dumb. But overall, this is still a great movie. I think they resolved it fine. It's not the best third installment in the trilogy. It's not like the third Lord of the Rings or anything, but still a great movie. Yeah. Yeah, it's shot really well. I like the way this movie's shot. I like the way this and The Dark Knight are shot. They're really well shot movies. And yeah. I don't have a ton to say about it. You can watch tons of videos that came out in like 2012 of people analyzing the movie and stuff. But yeah. Yeah, probably like an 8 out of 10, like an 8.2, I guess, if we're getting really exact. Yeah, I still really enjoy the movie though. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to 2014 when he directed Interstellar, which I have thoughts about that movie. So, yeah, let's move on. This is Interstellar, which came out in 2014 and is co-written and is fully directed by Christopher Nolan. If you're wondering who else wrote it, his brother Jonathan Nolan wrote it with him. This movie's long. This is a long movie, but that didn't bother me. This is probably an 8.5 for me. 9, 8.5 or 9. Some people hate this movie. Some people are in the middle. Some people love this movie, kind of like with The Dark Knight Rises, except more so with this movie because the ending of this movie is really weird. It's got a weird ending to it. But I still enjoy the movie. I really love the soundtrack. The score by Hans Zimmer. This might be my favorite score from him. Just amazing. The cinematography. I don't know. Let me see. I don't think it says. It doesn't say who did it. But the way this movie looks, the effects, it's out of this world. I mean, this movie is amazing to look at. Gorgeous film. Probably his best looking movie. Yeah. Interstellar is his best looking movie. So as far as like technical aspects of this movie goes, 10 out of 10. But my issues with the movie, like, I don't hate the ending, but again, I don't love the ending. First, let me tell you what the movie's about. This movie is about, so it takes place in a little bit of the future when the world is running out of food and the only thing they're eating is corn, and they will soon be running out of that as well. So they grab their an ex astronaut or pilot for spaceships. They grab Matthew McConaughey, who is also running one of these corn farms, and he has 2 kids, and he has his father living with him, played by Michael Caine, and he basically chooses to go in the spaceship with them, even though he will be gone from his family for a long, long time and might not be back until his children are really old and time will freeze. He will basically, when he comes back, he might be like the same age as his kid. Anyway, that was a really complicated plot description. You know what? I'm going to get into brief spoilers about the ending, because I do have some complaints with the ending. So, fast forward to 2017 when I talk about Dunkirk. So, fast forward to that. I'm going to give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, my issue with the ending is it's kind of dumb, because they say that because this movie feels like it's so smart throughout the whole entire film, and then like kind of like halfway through the second act, when we're getting into the third act, Anne Hathaway says the solution is love. Come on, this is a science movie. Don't say the solution is love. That bothered me, because throughout the movie they're just explaining the stuff, and everything's kind of making sense, and then Anne Hathaway goes like, the solution is love. Can we get a little more detailed than that? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And then like the whole bookcase thing, even though I enjoy the whole bookcase scene, it doesn't exactly make sense. And to finish talking about Interstellar, overall, not a huge fan of the ending. When he gets down to that weird future or different reality in which he sees his daughter when she's dying, that didn't quite make sense. But then we see Anne Hathaway has discovered another planet when she was let off the ship. Yeah, I don't hate the movie, though. I do really enjoy this movie. In fact, at one point, I love this movie. I would have called it a 10 like a year ago. But I don't know, I just thought about it more. I was like... Anyway, yeah, it's a great movie. Even though I do have some issues, it is a great movie. 8.5, close to a 9. 8.8. 8.8. Give it 8.8. Okay, let's move on to 2017, when Christopher Nolan directed his first war film, Dunkirk, which I have some thoughts about. Now we are at his most recent film, Dunkirk. And before we talk about Dunkirk, I have something to say. If you are one of the very few people that has made it this far into the video, I thank you. I thank you. Anyway, this video has turned out way longer than I thought it was going to be, you know. Let's save more of this for the conclusion. Anyway, let's get back to the movie. So Dunkirk is total out of order, but it isn't confusing. In fact, you can easily just watch it through. You understand which order it is in. And it's kind of about different stories going on in this one event back during World War I, I think. And yeah, it's a pretty good movie. Not one of my favorite Christopher Nolan movies, though. As far as, again, just like Interstellar, as far as all the technical stuff goes, this movie is perfect. This movie just looks beautiful and is... Sorry, I was just opening it to look at the inside. Yeah, it looks beautiful. The soundtrack's amazing. I mean, the score. Sorry. You know, but the problem with this movie, and my main issue with it, is the characterization. You don't really care about the characters that much, and they never really like. I don't think they even tell the names of most of the characters. If I had to pick a favorite character, it's be Tom Hardy, because he's kind of like the savior of the movie. But, as far as characterization goes, it's a little weak. But that might have been what Christopher Nolan was going for, because this movie is kind of like more of like a more of like a movie documentary. Like it feels like it's just showing the one event. Like it doesn't want to go any further than that. We're just seeing this one event. And if that's what it was trying to do, and of course that's what it was trying to do, but it didn't get into the characters, which would expand on that. But if that's what it was just trying to be, it succeeds on that. But I just wish there was a little more to it. But yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this movie. I enjoy it. This movie was way shorter than I thought it was gonna be. I remember when I first watched it. It was done and I was like, oh my god, that was only like an hour and like 50 minutes. Like I thought this was going to be long, because if you know Christopher Nolan, I already brought this up, but his movies are very long. But yeah, I enjoy the movie, But yeah. It's just not one of my favorites of his, but I still like it. Okay, Dunkirk. Good movie. Let's move on to the conclusion of this video. Is all of Christopher Nolan's filmography. Yeah. So let's talk about my favorite and least favorite movie of his. My least favorite movie of his is probably Dunkirk. I like all of his movies, and Dunkirk's even an 8 out of 10 for me. So I still like the movie. So Dunkirk's probably my least favorite. And then my favorite might be Memento. Memento or Inception or The Dark Knight are all kind of tied for me, but I think Memento is my favorite after thinking about it for a little bit. So yeah, in the comments below, tell me what's your favorite and least favorite Christopher Nolan movie. Also, I'd love to know what you thought of the video, and I'd like to say thank you again to everybody who watched this incredibly long video that I didn't think was going to be that long. Yeah, this is my first video on YouTube, so thank you. And subscribe if you want to see more. I will see you later.